Alrighty. So good morning and welcome to the Out Wild Couch to 5K. And I think we're on week 3 now. Is that right? Yep, that's right. So I would just love to do a check-in, and whoever wants to kind of talk a little bit about how their training is going. I think everybody would love to hear how each of us are progressing along, and it's always a challenge and there's always going to be ups and downs. So feel free to say how things are going for you. Who wants to start?
I'll go.
All right, Bree.
Okay. Sorry, I wasn't sure if there was a pause. Good morning, everybody. This past week, I was really excited that I actually went for every run on the training schedule, trying to get back into a momentum and maintain consistency of like a training program, and running every week is really challenging for me. And so a lot of time I'd be like, I run twice and then just couldn't quite get the discipline and motivation to show up for like the third day. So I did. And that last run was actually due to my sister because I wasn't feeling it. She went out for a run and that's all it took. And I was like, okay, get on out there. So it does help to have that accountability with other people for sure.
Definitely. It's always helpful. Are you guys running solo? Are you guys running with other people? Social distancing running? What are you guys doing?
So I've been running with a friend, a neighbor. We go to the Katy Trail. It used to be a railroad, so it's like pretty wide, so we can be across from each other. Don't see very many people. Good.
That's good. Nice to have somebody around too.
Yeah.
It's also nice to run solo too. Find it to be nice sometimes just to have that time to myself, to have my own clear headspace. Anybody else want to share how they're doing or how things are going, or maybe some frustrations around running? All right, MJ.
Hey, yeah, so I was kind of intimidated this week about increasing the distance. I'm doing the novice, so it went up to 1.75, I think. And I've like definitely hiked farther than that before, but I don't usually run very far, so I was kind of nervous about that. But I ended up like when I hike, I like always tell myself it's just like a mental game more than a physical game, and so I ended up kind of taking that mentality for running too, and it actually really helped. The first day I didn't do that and I like really struggled. So it was good.
Definitely. Do any of you have any other tips on what you do or what you focus on when you shift that distance and increase it from 1.5 to 1.75?
I smile. I force myself to smile. Makes it easier.
There you go. Definitely. When you're happy, you have a little bit more energy. So that's good.
Vidya here. I'm so glad there's social distancing and no one around me, because when it gets tough, I'm like, you got this, okay? You got this. Yeah, you can do this. You can do this. And it helps a lot. Like, you're completely out of breath, but it really helps to give myself a pep talk. And if anyone was to hear, it would be horrible, but no one's here.
That's awesome. Cool. So I think one thing that is helpful for me is I will pick something to focus on as in like in my body, like my breath. If you focus in on breathing and ask yourself, well, how am I breathing right now? Am I breathing hard or am I breathing easy? And you just focus in on steady breathing. Suddenly, I think some of the time just kind of goes a lot faster. Okay? And then if you're a person that visually wants to focus in on something else, you can pick a tree, you could pick a telephone pole or some other marker out in front of you that's 100 yards away or something, right? And you can just say, can I run from this spot to the next spot? And you're going to find yourself doing it, right? You're going to say, oh, yes, I can make it to that next spot. And then you just look forward again and say, can I get to that next spot without stopping, right? And you keep asking yourself, putting that little marker further out in front of you, and then suddenly you're there, right? Or you can look at your watch and you can say, can I do this for another 60 seconds? And you'll be like, oh, I can run for another minute. And then you ask yourself again, can I run for another minute? Okay. Maybe try a couple of those kinds of things this week when you're increasing your distances. Okay. All right. Anybody else want to share a little bit before we jump into running form? All right, let's talk about running form. So there's a couple different things that I wanted to talk about. And so the whole point of running form is to have better efficiency so that your body's moving more naturally, and then you'll enjoy running more and you won't get as injured, okay? So I got my shoe here, and I wanna first talk about foot strike. So that is where your foot is hitting the ground. And there is something that if you record yourself running and do it in like slow motion and just run up like 100 yards just right in front of your camera or something like that. And as you're slowing it down, you can see how your foot is actually hitting the ground, okay? And if you do something called heel striking, that's where the heel is gonna hit first, okay? And a lot of people can do that kind of thing. And what ends up happening is the force of your leg is, you're typically overstriding, okay? So that means your foot is out in front of you too far, okay? And you're coming down on your heel, and that motion right there is kind of like a super jarring motion, and it's going from your heel all the way up your leg. Okay, and that's what causes a lot of knee pain. It causes shin splints. It causes, you know, your hip to feel like it's getting, you know, beat up. I mean, it's a super jarring motion all the way up through your entire leg and into your lower back. So you'll want to focus in on, am I heel striking? Am I overstriding? Okay, and if you can land not on your toes, because you're landing way up here, that's not good. That's like running on your tippy toes. And if you try running like that, I mean, you'll feel your calf muscles just feel like they're going to explode. Okay, so if you tend to land more in the midfoot, right about right here, okay, that is the best place to land. That's where you're going to get the most support. You're not going to create injuries for yourself, and you're going to find out that, you know what, this feels the most comfortable. Okay, so if you record yourself, take a look there, see if you're landing right about here. Okay. All right. You guys have questions regarding foot strike?
Hi, Peter. It's Vidya. How do you consciously change that? Well, now that you tell me, I'm like completely unclear about how I run. But do you have any tips on how you consciously work towards changing that form? I do think I land on my heel with the way you're describing things, but how do I kind of work on that? Yeah, if there is a way, or maybe I just need to be better at things. But yeah.
I find that recording myself running is a really great way to see what my running form looks like. And I won't do that very often, but maybe, you know, once a month or something like that, I'll just take a look, see what's going on in there. And as I talk about running form all the way up from your feet, all the way up your body and your arms, you'll start to, after you record yourself once or twice, you're going to really pick up on like, oh, that's what I'm doing. And then the next time you record yourself, you're going to be like, yeah, I don't want to look like what I looked like a couple weeks ago. I need to make some corrections here. So you'll see it in your own running as soon as you record it.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. Any other questions regarding foot strike? Cool. All right. So the next thing that I want to talk about is kind of that leg motion. So this is where, you know, I don't know if you've ever watched people running, and some of them have like a very high heel, or high heel kick. It means their foot is really coming back pretty high, almost like they kick their butt when they're running. Okay. So if you focus a little bit on, I wouldn't call it trying to kick your butt, but more like lift your heel as you're, you know, running. Just think about, can I pull my heel up a little bit? And you don't need to kick all the way up. If you're kicking way up here on the back side of it, that's probably because you're sprinting. It means you're really, really going fast. And right now we're just going at a good, easy aerobic pace, something that feels comfortable enough. But you don't need to have it go really high, but you definitely don't, you want to have some momentum. And that's what kind of gives you that ability to go back and forth pretty quick. You have questions on leg motion or how to kind of lift that heel up a little bit? All right.
This is Shalu. I have the questions
Yep.
for that heel motion. You know, I find myself not able to pick up the heel when I swing my leg. Is there like a practice exercises I can work on that?
If you try running in place and try to kick your butt when you're running in place, that's one way to get that motion, to teach yourself how to do that. And it'll probably also help loosen up your muscles a little bit too. So they say that if you have a tight hip flexor, so right along here, there's your hip flexor. If those are overly tight, then you're not going to be able to lift your back leg up very high. Okay, so these are all, you know, interconnected muscles, and you know, if you're too stiff, that's what stops you from being able to do that. And if you foam roll in those areas, that's what will help loosen up and lengthen those muscles, so that you'll be able to do that.
Okay.
Okay. And then the other thing is pace. So I don't know how fast you're running. The slower you run, the harder it is to maintain good form. But I don't want you guys running really, really fast. Don't have to get out there and just, you know, sprint. That's not what we're trying to do here. But if you're on the slower end, you gotta also think about, how do I get to a pace that actually makes me feel like I'm keeping my running form and my running motion moving in a smooth, fluid way. So for me, if I run my aerobic pace around 8-minute 30-second pace. Okay, if I'm running around 10 or 11-minute pace, I'm noticing my form is slowing down so much that it's actually harder for me to maintain good form.
Okay.
But I'm talking about a pretty big difference between 8:30 and like 10 and a half, 11 or something like that. You know, that's quite a big difference. So, but you have to think about it from your own spot, from wherever it is that you're running at. So, you know,
maybe I'm just running too slow. I think I'm, you know, around that 10-minute. So maybe I need to pick up my pace a little bit.
You can have good form at 10-minute pace though. So
okay,
it just takes a little bit of effort to think it through and think, am I lifting my feet? And then the other piece of it is something I'll get to in a second here, and that's the cadence. I don't know if you guys have heard that term before, but it's the number of steps you're taking per minute. Okay, so how many times is your foot actually hitting the ground per minute? The most optimal number is 180. Okay, so it doesn't matter how fast you're running either. You could be running like Kipchoge's, you know, record-breaking 2-minute or 2-hour marathon pace, or you can be running at a 3-hour marathon, or you could be running at a 4-hour marathon pace. It really, it's always about what is your cadence, and typically you're at about 180. Okay, so that's the reason why, like, my Spotify playlist, most of that music is all at like 180 beats per second. So I can try to keep on that pace the whole entire time. And the biggest difference between us and some world record breaking, you know, marathon runner is the stride length. So people that have a really long stride length, like Kipchoge, his stride length is ridiculous. So it's such a really long spread. But if you take a look and go to a YouTube video and watch Kipchoge's pace and how he's running things, his stride is really, really long, but if you counted the number of steps that that guy has taken per minute, it's 180. And so I can't stress that enough, actually, to focus in on
something to do with someone's height. You know, does that mean that the taller person has a longer stride than the person who's not?
Definitely they have longer strides for sure, because even when they're taking a shorter, if they're not even striding as far as they could, taller people will take less steps to cover the same amount of area. So like I'm not a very tall guy, right? So when I run next to really tall people, my cadence, I notice, is like I am just going so much faster than this other person. Like I'm taking so many more steps just to stay at the same pace or same speed. Okay. Okay. But the good thing about the cadence part is that as you develop more fitness, you're going to recognize that I can keep the short cadence stuff up at a really high pace and not get tired. But if you start to overstride yourself and you start to really reach your legs, that's when you actually exert a lot of energy, and that's where you get really tired. So just out on a run, when you go out this week, if you just think, how do I increase my cadence just a tiny bit? Okay. How do I get myself up to be light? If you think about keeping your feet really light when you're running, it's like ground contact time. So you don't want to have your foot pounding on the ground like this, right? But if you think, how do I get my feet to, it isn't not that fast, but how do I get my feet to be a little bit faster and lighter? And if you just focus on the word light, you're going to notice that your cadence and your pace, if you looked at your watch, am I going any faster? You're going a lot faster when you look at your watch and you just say, I'm going light, 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 light. Okay. Guarantee you'll pick up your pace by like 30 seconds. You won't even know what you're doing. It's kind of weird how that works.
Peter, do you recommend, like, when you're running with like I've seen like a lot of people running with with the pause, right? I mean, when they're running fast, or some people running in the middle. Is there a recommendation, like how, I don't know what's the right word, but the foot, should you put the whole foot, or should be in the front of the foot?
Oh,
am I making sense?
Hey, Mitul. So yeah, you want to have a mid-foot foot strike.
Okay.
Right about there. Okay. You don't want to be on the toes, and absolutely do not hit heel strike. Heel strike is is going to cause all the injuries. Okay. All right. So we talked a lot about kind of the cadence part of it, and then the hip and the torso. You want to be standing fairly upright. Okay. So when I say upright, you want to be standing tall. You don't want to be slouched over. You're like blocking air when you start doing stuff like that. You want to be more upright, and you want to keep your chin. Think of your chin as like being up and level. And don't look down at the ground when you're running. When you're looking down at the ground, you're blocking the airway into your throat. You want to be looking out maybe at least 50 yards out in front of you. Okay. And then you also want to have a slight forward motion or lean into your running form. Okay. So if you think about it, if your body is leaning forward just a little bit, it's going to be gravity that's starting to propel you forward. If you're standing too upright, there's no forward momentum. I always try leaning in front. And one of my friends, he was saying that if you can lean far enough forward where in your vision, you almost lose sight of your feet, I think that's a little too extreme, to be honest. It's like when I sit there, I'm like, wow, that's really kind of leaning forward a lot. But I mean, he's probably saying it just to be over exaggerating. But you want to be leaning forward. That's going to help you move forward. Gravity is going to just throw you forward. Okay. And then arm motion. So I didn't notice this about my own arm motion until I started recording myself. And you want to have a very compact body motion, okay? So if you don't want your arms out here, you don't want your elbows running out here like this kind of thing, right? It's like you got to keep it in tight. So it's not that it has to be rubbing against you, but your elbows are basically like pistons. They're driving back, forwards and backwards, okay? And you want to keep your hands really relaxed. So like you're holding a feather or something really light in your hand, okay? It's not that it's not it's not that it's so light that you couldn't hold something, okay? But think about it like this. Questions on arm motion? So your arms are going to swing about the same pace as your legs. They're just kind of counterbalancing. All
So
right.
in my case, I didn't used to have arm motions when I started running, but I'm kind of, people have been telling me that your arm should be moving. Is that like, if you really want to run faster or longer duration, that your arm should be moving?
Yeah, you definitely should have arm motion when you're running. A natural arm rhythm is going to happen when your legs are moving, and they just go opposite of whatever your legs are doing down below. They should be anyway. And
so I've started moving them intentionally, and it feels that I'm moving them a lot more, so I'm just kind of curious about this whole paradigm. I feel that I'm going faster if I'm moving my hands faster.
The faster you drive your arms, your legs are going to follow.
Okay, got it.
Any other questions on the arm motion?
Hey, Peter, back to the 180 really quick.
Uh-huh.
Is that when you're counting, are you counting 1, 2, 3, 4? Or are you counting 1, 2, 3, one foot or both foot?
Each foot strike.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And depending upon what kind of watch you're wearing, some of them actually keep track of your cadence. There's ways that you can have your technology work for you. I don't know. There's a million different kinds of watches out there, but check to see if your watch can do it. Some of the watches, like mine, requires a chest heart rate monitor, and I wear a Garmin heart rate monitor. It's more accurate than the one that's on your wrist. The variations from a watch heart rate is a little bit more erratic, not quite as accurate. Might spike kind of high or might go down really low depending upon how tight it is on your wrist. So I wear a chest rate one, but then the chest rate thing also provides massive amounts of data, way more than you'd ever need to know. Like I still don't even know half the data that it's collecting right now, because I'm just like, it starts talking about vertical oscillation and crazy stuff that like I feel like maybe I need to have somebody else explain this stuff to me, or why do I even care at this point? But as far as cadence goes, that one is a super important one to understand. And then once you get your cadence down, you're just gonna flat out know, your body is gonna feel it. And you're gonna like, oh yeah, I'm running at about a 180 right now. Or if it starts slowing down, you're like, oh yeah, I can tell that I'm running a little bit slower. And your pace will follow with it. All right. Any other questions on running form?
I just have a quick question about the arm movement.
Yep.
I usually run with my phone in my hand. Is that bad for arm motion or form or anything like that?
Well, as long as it's not stopping you from moving your arms, it's fine. Sometimes I run with my phone in my hand and I'll switch hands just to give my hand a little break, right? But if anytime you can have those kinds of things not in your hands, it is better. So if you can get like a flip belt or something, those things that wrap around your waist, right? And there's some pockets in that thing, it's comfortable enough. Like I've experimented with that. I've done things where some of my shorts have a tighter pocket that I can actually put the phone in, even the big, huge, giant, iPhones with the big screens. Some of the running pants that I've got have a side pocket on the leg, you know, it's like I'll shove it down in there. That works really well. But the thing that's important, you guys, is that as you're running, you got to realize that however you're training right now, that's how you're going to perform in the future if you run a 5K race. So if you think about it in the terms of like if every day is a race day, you're going to show up and you're going to practice differently. And my friend, he was a professional triathlete. I was talking to him one time about like, you know, what do you do differently on race day versus like your normal training days? He's like, the race day is just perfect execution of my training day. And I was like, oh, that that wouldn't be really great for me because my training days are like all over the place, right? And it's like bad days, good days, whatever. It's like this guy, you know, there's a reason why he had like a world record that held for like 2.5 years in an Ironman. And I was just like, okay, so he approaches things in a way where every day he shows up to his training and he treats it the way he wants to treat it when he actually races. So I'm not picking on you on your phone thing, but I mean, it's like if you're going to run a race, chances are you're probably not holding that thing in your hand when you're running the race. So why would you train that way, right?
That's a great point. No, I used to do the same, and I got the belt, and the belt really helps.
Yeah.
From that perspective. Another thing I saw was my hands were getting tired, so I would just flip the phone back and forth, you know, in that. But sorry, I joined a few minutes late. As far as the strides, I feel that I don't have strides, right? So is that normal, or you develop strides, you know, as you run more in this?
So there's stride drills that you can do too to increase your stride and be able to focus in on that. I don't want to jump into like a stride conversation. We can do it like in the future here, or I can send you some information directly on that. But I think the thing to focus on right now, where everybody's at, is just on the cadence. So Mitul, as you start to count your steps and figure out what your cadence level is, if you zero in on like, how do I keep my feet really light? Like I want to, each time I touch the ground, I want it to be really a light impact. And you do it really quickly, you're going to recognize your pace is already just going to pick up. So that's what you can either make your cadence faster or you can increase your stride length and then you will get faster. Okay. And you can play around a little bit with both of those things and see how it feels even, but you'll notice if you're looking at your watch, what is my pace right now? But you'll see it go up a lot just by doing the increase of the cadence.
Okay, got it.
All right. All right, so we are out of time. I wanted to point out one other thing. In the spreadsheet that has the training schedule in it, I put down a resource tab in there, okay? And I put down all kinds of data in there. It's basically kind of like what's in my gym bag. It's like all the different stuff that I use, from shoes, soles, socks, shirts, what kind of water bottles I'm using, to what I'm doing for if I have leg cramps, or nutrition, pre-run hydration, post-run hydration and nutrition. And I think it deserves to have its own conversation around it when we meet up like next week. We'll pick something out of this thing that people really want to zero in on. But I know that somebody was asking me about nutrition and what do I do like before I run, you know, what am I eating? How do I prepare beforehand? And then also post-run nutrition. There's definitely something there that you need to be doing because you're breaking down muscle tissue. Okay, so like So I haven't told you guys this, but I took 3 weeks off of running, and I stopped running as soon as the coronavirus thing happened. Right, I was like, that kind of like stopped me from running a little bit. And then the other piece of it was I was supposed to run the Boston Marathon yesterday, and so they pushed the Boston Marathon out from yesterday to September 14th. And as soon as I took a look at the training calendar for that, I was like, oh, I cannot sustain the crazy intense training schedule I'm on right now. I need to take a break. I need my body to relax and absorb the training that I just did. But yesterday I went out and I did a 2.62 mile run, nice little short one, but it was my first run in like 3 weeks, right? And I did the exact same things that I do before I go run a marathon. But the early stuff beforehand, I did my foam rolling, I did my active stretching, and then I went out there, I did my run, and I came back and I had a protein shake. It's a vegan protein shake that I just love to drink. And I haven't had one of those in like 3 weeks, and it tasted so good. And I don't know, probably it's because I just ran and I felt great after running. And then also it's the thing that I always do after running. I have that drink and it just makes me feel good. And I know that my muscles are now rebuilding. So the next time I go back out there, I'm a little bit stronger so I can run again the next day. So, anyway. And I will put that kind of stuff in there. It's like what brand it is and what type of protein shake I'm drinking. If you guys care, I use almond milk. I don't use milk, that kind of stuff. All right. Any other questions before we hang up?
Hey, Peter, I have a quick question, which if you can address in an email or here is fine. So I was feeling a little unwell last week, so I didn't do all 3 days. So I'm hoping to do the third day today. So I feel a little off schedule, but I'm guessing like if you kind of fall off the wagon a little bit, what do you recommend? Just kind of sticking to the old week and finishing it out, or just moving ahead with the next week? Or if we were to miss days, what do you recommend?
Sure. So life happens and we're all busy, right? We're not professional runners, and there's going to be all kinds of stuff that pops into our lives and family and whatever else that's out there, right? So I have a hard time with this part too, because I'm a person that likes to check off stuff off my list, and I take my training super seriously. And so if I miss something, I start to beat myself up over it. And I think we need to be a little bit more kind and have a little bit more self-compassion towards ourselves to say it's okay if we miss something today. And you're not going to be losing massive fitness by missing 1 day out of the week. And your body actually does need rest. And the amount of stress and stuff on our systems and bodies, it's really hard, right? So the stress on our daily lives and work lives and everything else, that's creating an impact to our bodies too. So when we get to training is also really kind of hard, and that's tough on our bodies too. So I would say just be a little bit more kind and try to recognize that you're doing the best you can, right? And if you can do back-to-back training days too, right? If you miss a day and you want to say, I want to do it tomorrow, that's fine. Just do it tomorrow. I would say your longer run day or your Saturday day is probably the day that you don't want to do consecutive days on that one, just because you're trying to push yourself, right? You're not giving yourself as much of a break during that Saturday run or your weekend run. Hopefully that answers your question.
That's perfect. Thank you.
All right, you guys, it's time to go. And I hope you guys have a great week. And if you have any questions, feel free to text me or send me an email. Have a great week, you guys.
Thanks, Peter.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Bye, everyone.
Bye.